They didn't send diplomats. They didn't send a drone strike. They sent assassins, 9 of them. Their arrival was unannounced, cloaked in the black silence of orbit, riding a Dominion freighter disguised as a debris satellite. No declaration of war. No broadcast. No mercy. Just 9 monsters descending on a dead corner of Earth, one by one. Each was a weapon carved from extinction, engineered in laboratories so deep that even Dominion Command denied they existed. These weren't soldiers. These were erasers, sent to wipe existence from anything deemed a threat. And their target? A 12-year-old boy. No armor. No rank. No family. No last name. Just a ghost. Code name, Wraith. To the Dominion, this was a clean-up job, a leftover from Earth's failed weapon-breeding initiative, a broken experiment buried in Exile Colony 9, a place long forgotten by both stars and history. He had no record of military service, no planetary clearance, no known weaponry, just a string of anomalies, outposts gone silent, patrols torn apart, thermal traces that led to mutilated corpses hung upside down in desert ruins. So they reviewed the footage. A shaky Recon drone caught a glimpse, a child standing over 5 armored Dominion scouts. All of them dead. The boy was barefoot, shirtless, holding a stick. At first, they laughed, then the laughter died, because one by one, the team sent after him never came back. And now they were sending their best. Rallic the Pisser, a 4-armed shadow that killed entire families in one breath. Zuron the Burner, his spine fused to a living flamethrower. Vrel, Skinny to the Void. Xerok the Tracker, Devosh the Skinner, and the rest. Led by Vexer, commander of the Bleeding Moon. He was the one who reviewed the data. Saw the smile in the footage, a child with fire in his eyes. He didn't speak, didn't scream, just moved, too fast, too calculated. They called it luck, they called it myth. Vexer called it what it was. He's not a child, Vexer growled to his squad as they hovered above Earth's ash-ridden crust. He's a prototype, designed for war, raised in silence, starved of empathy. Every second is alive, he gets more dangerous. This is not a kill mission. His men turned toward him. This is an extinction. Exile Colony 9 was dust and bone, a sunless prison for the discarded, concrete towers half sunk into ash, metal scaffolding that groaned when the wind blew. Everything was rusted, broken, forgotten, but something watched from beneath the sand. The boy had seen their descent, felt it in his bones. The ground trembled in a way only Dominion dropships made tremble. They thought the zone was unguarded, that he'd be surprised, but he'd been preparing for 6 years. Every night, while the rest of the exiles died starving or frozen, he hunted, built traps, killed scavengers, took their tech, modified Dominion rifles, rewired old transmitters, studied Dominion biology through dissected scouts left too close to his own, learned their languages, their gait, their mistakes. He didn't flinch at the pain anymore. He sharpened broken ribs into knives. They were coming for him. He welcomed it. Rallic came first, cloaked, precision silent, dropping from the air like a whisper of wind. He moved through the ruins with fluid grace, for blades out, each tipped in toxin. He slid under rusted girders, skated across gravel without sound, and located a bunker. The door was open. A candle flickered inside. Child footprints in the dust. He entered. Silence. His thermal sensors pinged. Heartbeat. Corner of the room. He stepped forward, blades raised. Then the pressure plate clicked. The ceiling came down. A 20-foot slab of reinforced concrete, detached from its housing with surgical precision, landed with a crunch that shook the dust into clouds. Rallic's body vanished under the weight. Only a hand twitched out from under the slab, still holding a blade. The boy appeared from behind a crate. Didn't speak, didn't blink, just watched the twitching stop. 20 minutes later, Zuron the Burner arrived. He didn't wait. He ignited his flamethrower and lit the entire structure on fire. Napalm poured into every crack, every shadow, every crevice. The bunker became a furnace. He waited outside, watching the flames chew the sky. Then he heard it, a click behind him. He turned too slow. A tripwire connected to 3 stacked Dominion plasma grenades. The blast took his legs. He screamed and tried to crawl, but the fire came next. Not from ash. From Zuron's own ruptured spine rig. He cooked in his own flame. By morning, only 7 remained. They circled, regrouped, realized something was wrong. This wasn't defense. This was a hunt. He wasn't hiding. He was baiting them. The boy's name wasn't Ash by accident. He lived in the fire. Devosh the Skinner activated his scanners. He's just a child, he spat. He can't keep this up. But Xerok disagreed. There are patterns. Every trap is layered. Dominion kill code embedded in each pulse mine. That's not random. That's warcraft. That's training. Vexus stepped forward. It's obsession. He doesn't fight for glory. He fights to erase. He stared across the dunes. We didn't come to kill a child. We came to silence a nightmare. Far below, beneath the cracked cathedral on the edge of the colony, the boy opened a case. Inside were pieces of bone, human femurs, sharpened to a point, Dominion blade parts wired to screamer scanned, a broken drone camera that still recorded. He tapped the lens once. Recording live. He dragged the body into the center of the room. Dominion scout. Eyes removed. Chest opened. Words carved into the torso. I remember. The Dominion thought Earth's weapon breeding initiative had failed, that their attempt to build perfect killers ended in chaos. But one survived, and instead of escaping the war, they buried him inside it. No one ever came to extract him. No one ever came to turn him off. He taught himself pain, taught himself silence, taught himself to make coffins. And now, as a firelight flickered against his eyes, he loaded the scout's skull into a bag, because he was going to return them, one by one, in pieces, to remind the galaxy what it forgot. That Earth may have lost the war, but it built something no war could ever destroy. The desert was silent by morning. Ash drifted on the wind like snow made of bone dust. 2 assassins were dead, slaughtered, humiliated. The rest stood in a circle outside the ruined bunker, armor blackened with soot, weapons drawn, rage boiling through their veins. But under the rage, something else. Doubt. They were Dominion assassins, elites forged in the deepest labs, raised without fear or failure. Their names were spoken in hushed breaths across galaxies. They had hunted rebels through black holes, beheaded warlords in their own fortresses, shredded entire resistance cells without alerting a single soul. But now, in the ruins of Exile Colony 9, they were hunting a child who had killed 2 of them without even raising a weapon. Not one word had come from the boy. No threats. No signals. No cries for help. Only traps. Only death. Xerok scanned the perimeter. The tracks don't match the footage. His masking weight distribution, moving in figure-8 patterns to confuse thermal mapping. That's trained behavior. Impossible, Devosh growled. He's a child. He's a child built to kill, Vexus snapped. Start treating him like it. They split into pairs. One hunter moved alone, Vrel, the skin eater of the void. Her skin was pale silver, veined with neurofilaments that pulsed with violet light. She didn't trust partners. Never had. She had devoured her own squad back in the Arkan revolts for slowing her down. Vrel was a beast in human form, her senses sharpened beyond any Dominion standard. She stalked the outskirts of the graveyard, once a city square, now a forest of bones. Human skulls lined the fences. Long femurs were driven into the ground like warning posts. Everything was wrong. Too quiet. Too symmetrical. Vrel stepped over a pile of broken ribs and paused. She smelled iron. Not fresh blood. Aged blood. Cured. It was bait. Her eyes widened a second too late. The sand beneath her detonated in silence, plasma foam activated by weight sensor. A concussive dome wrapped around her before she could scream. Then came the wasps. They weren't real insects. They were nanoshards, invisible until they landed, then burrowed into nerves like molten acid. Her scream never made it out. The dome absorbed sound. Her body twisted, convulsed, broken on itself as a swarm chewed her from the inside out. It took 18 seconds. Then silence. Ash watched from a rusted pipe 10 meters away. His eye was swollen shut. His ribs ached. He'd been coughing blood for 2 days. But he didn't flinch. 3 down. 6 to go. Xerox was the first to notice something deeper. He activated his drone scanner, overlaying Dominion maps against live terrain. There was a pattern. The deaths weren't random. Each corpse, each location, each trap, it was a circle. Ash was building a kill zone. Not just a trap, but a message. Every step brought them closer to the center. He wanted them to surround him. He wanted them to come together. Like prey, and they were falling for it. Devosh growled low in his throat. I'll gut him myself. No, Vexor snapped. We move carefully. He's bleeding us. Then let him, Devosh said. He broke formation. Alone. He moved into the church ruins, once a place of worship, now a shattered dome of stone and soot. Ash had taken it over weeks ago. Devosh didn't care. He was a skinner. His armor was laid with hides of those he'd flayed alive. His weapons were crude, hook blades, serrated for maximum agony. He wanted to feel his kills suffer. The air was thick inside. Dust hung like fog. Broken pews scattered the floor. Devosh stepped on something soft. A teddy bear. Burnt. Half melted. He sneered. Sentimental. Then the bear's eyes blinked. EMP pulse. Devosh's HUD crashed. The darkness swallowed him whole. Movement on the left. He turned. Too slow. Ash dropped from the ceiling like a shadow, his arms swinging low. A barbed cable whipped across Devosh's throat, then yanked back hard. Flesh tore. Armor cracked. Devosh staggered, blades up, snarling. But Ash was already gone. The pews had shifted, moved, rearranged. Not randomly, intentionally. He wasn't just fighting Devosh. He was controlling the environment. A rusted chandelier fell. Devosh dodged, roaring, then tripped. He landed on a scatter of marbles, ceramic bowls coated in Dominion acid compound, stolen from old grenades. His skin began to burn. He howled. Ash struck again, this time with a broken rib sharpened into a spike. He drove it into Devosh's armpit. Once, twice, 5 times. Devosh screamed and grabbed the boy by the throat. I'll rip you apart, he snarled. Ash didn't struggle. He smiled and bit into Devosh's cheek, hard enough to rip away the flesh. Devosh dropped him in agony. Ash landed, rolled, vanished behind broken altar stone. The ground under Devosh shifted. A sinkhole, not natural. Dug. He fell onto spikes. Dozens of them, rust-covered, drenched in dried blood. The last thing Devosh saw was Ash walking away, dragging his sharpened rib behind him. 4 down. The remaining 5 circled tighter. Fear began to drip through the cracks in their armor. Xerox clutched his pulse rifle like it could save him from nightmares. He'd seen soldiers panic before, but never assassins. We end this now, Vexor barked. No more mistakes. He opened his gauntlet and activated a beacon. From the clouds above, 10 Dominion drones descended, each armed with thermal claws, sonic burst rifles, and ground-penetrating radar. They hovered in formation, scanning every inch of the ruins. Ash watched from under the sand, eyes wide. He didn't panic. He moved. Swiftly, he darted through collapsed tunnels, snaked through wire channels, slid into the bones of the cathedral's buried foundations. The drones would find him in seconds, but seconds were all he needed. He pulled out the chip he'd stolen from Zuron's backplate. Dominion Command Module. He inserted it into the broken transmitter he'd rigged to his blood. The drone stopped. Their lights blinked. Their targeting protocols reset. They turned and locked onto Xerox. No! He screamed, raising his hand. Too late. 10 drones opened fire. Thermal claws. Sonic bursts. Plasma drills. Xerox disappeared in a storm of his own technology. Vexor screamed orders, but they were ignored, because Ash had rewritten the command tree. Not completely, just enough. The drone scattered. 2 exploded. 3 chased false signals into the mountains. 4 hovered in confusion, lost in recursive code loops. Only Vexor stood untouched. He turned slowly. Ash stood 10 meters away. Blood-smeared, eyes dark, unarmed. Come to die. Vexor asked, pulse blade rising. Ash didn't answer. He raised a hand, dropped something. A tooth. Devosh's. Then he vanished into smoke. A flash charge, not lethal, just bright enough to blind. When Vex's vision returned, the boy was gone. Only a message remained, scrawled on a church wall in alien blood. 4 left. They followed him into the bone fields without a plan. Not because they were confident, because they had no other choice. 4 of them remained. Vexa, the commander. Goran, the butcher. Enkau, the neural slicer. And Kays, the silent. They no longer spoke. Each name they lost echoed in the hollow space between them. Ralak, Zuran, Vrel, Devosh, Zurok, all gone, all torn apart by a child who bled when he breathed but never seemed to die. It wasn't a war anymore. It was a purge, and Ash was the one doing it. The bone field stretched 50 kilometers across the southern edge of Exile Colony 9. Once a battlefield, now a desert of skeletal remains, human, alien, animal, machine. Sand buried some, wind exposed others. The bones had bleached white under a century of ultraviolet storms. Femurs stuck up like spears. Rib cage lay cracked open like broken cages. Skulls grinned out to the date, empty-eyed and waiting. Vex's boots crunched through them. His visor flickered with movement, but never for more than a second. Just shapes. Heat ghosts. A trail that vanished mid-scan. The boy didn't leave footprints anymore. He moved like wind. Or virus. We fan out, he ordered, voice flat. No one responded. The squad had stopped responding hours ago. Trust was gone. Each of them knew it could be a trap. Each step forward might be their last. Kays vanished first. He was the silent, the unseen. He spoke only once in his career, to scream as he ripped the spine from a Terran general in the Battle of Dredge 6. He didn't scream now. His signal dropped off grid in the northwest quadrant. A flicker, a static pulse. Then nothing. When they found the site, his helmet was buried in the chest cavity of a human skeleton. Blood still dripped from inside. No body, just silence. Ash didn't need brute force anymore. He needed fear, and he had it. They moved slower now. Goran had his blade drawn, licking the edges with cracked tongue. He was losing it, eyes twitching, fingers tapping the handle of his skin hook in erratic rhythm. Enkau's neural rig had begun to short-cycle, picking up false echoes of Ash's voice, whispers that made no sense. They weren't even sure he was still human. No food, no water, no sleep. The boy had been running for days without pause. He bled from the eyes now. His shoulder had partially dislocated. He fixed it by slamming it into a wall. He'd stitched his own stomach shut with frayed wire from a Dominion scanner. Each breath was pain, but it kept him awake. Pain was clarity. Pain was focus. Pain was the sound of purpose. He'd studied the bone field for years. Memorized every pit, every cliff edge, every grave. He'd planted traps, not explosives, not alarms. Just lies. Trails leading in circles. Half-dug pits with just enough depth to confuse a tracker. Drones set to mimic footsteps and biosignals. He guided them like cattle through the maze. He waited near the monument. An ancient mech engine rusted into the earth, a towering ruin of twisted steel and dead hydraulics. It looked like a beast half-buried, clawing at the sky. He crouched beneath it, arms wrapped in cloth, a jagged shard of glass between his fingers. This was where they'd die. Enkau arrived first. She stepped into the shadow of the engine, eyes glowing with neural interference. Her implants had fried. Too much ambient interference. Too much stress. Her mind split into fragments, decoding every heat echo as an enemy, every sound as a scream. She turned. Something moved. She fired. It was a mirror. Her bolt rebounded, clipped her arm, tore muscle off bone. She collapsed to one knee. Ash moved without sound, slid from above like dust on wind. The shard slipped through the gap in her collar, into the throat, out the other side. She gagged, eyes wide. Ash didn't speak. He just pushed her backward, into a spike he'd hidden beneath the soil. She was dead before she landed. 3 left. Goran heard the scream and ran. He didn't wait. He didn't call for backup. He charged. Goran was a brute, taller than most Dominion soldiers, skin laced with carbon plate grafts. He could break walls with his bare hands. He wanted to break bones. He found her standing in the open, face bruised, arms slick with blood. bare-chested, ribs showing like a corpse. "You little bastard," Goran hissed. Ash didn't move, didn't blink, just raise his hands. "Empty," Goran roared and lunged. He swung wide, too wide. The boy stepped in, low, surgical. Something in his hand. Goran felt a prick under his arm. Then burning. He looked down. A syringe. Nanoacid. Harvested from Zuran's broken gear. Concentrated to pierce flesh and armor alike. His muscles seized. Skin boiled. He dropped to his knees. Ash stepped behind him. Slid the glass shard across the back of his neck. Slow. Not for pain. For control. Goran's body hit the ground, twitching like a dying insect. Two left. Vexa stood at the edge of the field, watching the fires rise. He didn't shake. Didn't flinch. He'd known how this would end since the second the first body fell. Ash was no longer prey. He was correction. The Dominion thought they had erased Earth's mistakes, that burying the boy in dust and exile would cleanse a galaxy of its crime. But all they'd done was delay the reckoning. Ash knew everything now. The ship codes, the orbital relays, the weaknesses in every assassin's protocol. He had carved knowledge from corpses, dug secrets from skulls, learned death like a language. He stepped out into the open, 20 paces from Vexa. No cover, no allies, just two monsters, one young, one old, breathing the same poison air. Vexa raised his rifle. Ash raised his eyes. "Why?" Vexa asked. "You could have run. You could have hid." Ash didn't answer. He just looked past him. At the sky. It shimmered. Something fell. A shadow screamed through the atmosphere. A satellite. Vexa turned, horrified. The boy had hijacked a Dominion orbital. He'd hacked its descent path using scavenged Dominion command chips, code mapped from the corpses of the very assassins sent to kill him. The satellite hit the center of the bone fields. Exploded like a small god. Bone, flame, metal, everything turned white. Ash didn't run, didn't blink, didn't scream. He stood in the eye of the blast, coat whipping back, eyes glowing from reflected fire, while the Dominion's own sky weapon wiped their legacy off the planet. When the light faded, only he remained. Vexa, burned, bleeding, on his knees, armor cracked. Ash stepped forward. No words. He pressed a shard to the commander's throat. Vexa looked up, lips trembling. "You win," he whispered. Ash leaned in. "No." He drove the shard deep, then deeper, until there was no sound but gurgling. He let the body drop. The fires rose. He dragged each corpse, one by one, into the pits he'd prepared. He wrapped them in ash-soaked cloth, tied them with Dominion cables, and burned them. Not to erase them, but to send a message. Their implants still functioned. He activated each one with a neural spike. Sync to transmit, not coordinates, not audio, just a word, over and over, to every Dominion ship still listening. "Send 10. The message hit Dominion High Command like a bullet to the heart. "Send 10. Not a distress signal, not a plea for help, a challenge. Broadcast through Dominion comm lines hijacked from the corpses of 9 assassins, wrapped in neural echoes encoded by human brainwave frequencies, repeating every 30 seconds. They tried to scramble it. Failed. They tried to track it. Failed. The signal bounced through their own satellites, piggybacked on encryption layers that weren't supposed to exist anymore. Someone, something, had bent Dominion technology into a weapon of humiliation. A 12-year-old ghost from a dead planet had cracked their armor with nothing but fury, fire, and a shard of glass. Panic moved through their systems like smoke. Commanders whispered his name. The files they'd buried were reopened. Earth's weapon-breeding initiative, Project Wraith. Scrapped, classified, erased, but not forgotten. Someone had survived, and now he was answering for everything. Ash sat alone in the cold ruins of the bone fields. His hands were wrapped in strips of cloth soaked in his own blood. His knuckles were cracked, nails torn. His eye was swollen shut, and he hadn't eaten in 2 days. The adrenaline had faded. The rage didn't. He stared at the fire, not to feel warm, just to remember. One by one, He pulled their names from his mind. The brothers and sisters of Dominion killed when they sterilized the initiative. Infants drowned in glass tanks. Children lobotomized with electric probes. Those who survived were dumped into exile like garbage. Except Ash. Ash didn't die. He adapted. He evolved. He became their shadow. And now he was going to be their extinction. A ship entered orbit. He felt it. Not saw. Not heard. Felt. The pressure in the air changed. The wind shifted. He stood, limbs stiff, bones aching, skin blistered from plasma burns. But his mind was still sharp, still burning. He moved across the wasteland like a revenant. His traps were ready. Not simple ones. Not mines and wires. Psychological ones. He dragged the bodies of the assassins across the colony, hung them from towers, buried them in shallow graves with fingers sticking out. Left one pose at a dinner table, glass of dirt in his hand. It wasn't about killing now. It was about breaking them. Ash knew something the Dominion didn't. Terror wasn't just blood. It was silence, waiting, watching. The moment before the blade came down. He made the whole planet feel like that moment. The new squad landed 3 kilometers west. 10 fresh assassins. Not field agents. Not soldiers. Cleaners. Their armor was white, polished, unmarked. Their helmets bore no names. Their steps made no sound. They moved like whispers made flesh. They didn't speak, didn't scan, didn't question, because they weren't looking for Ash. They were looking to wipe the memory of him. But it was too late. Ash wasn't hiding. He was waiting. They came across a courtyard strewn with bones. In the center, a throne made of ribs. On it sat a doll, its face drawn with a smile, its chest carved with a single word, Wraith. The moment they approached, the wind changed. One of them, the lead, paused. A flicker behind his visor. A figure standing atop a half-buried satellite dish 100 meters away. Small, still, watching. Then gone. The assassins moved as one. Surround, flank, cut off retreat. But by the time they reached the spot, there was nothing. Just a handprint. Smeared in blood. They split into teams. 3 were gone in the first hour. One stepped into a cryo vent shaft and never came back up. The others found his helmet 2 hours later, filled with sand and teeth. Another was impaled. Not by a weapon, but by bones, ribs sharpened into spears. Driven upward through the ground like a trapdoor. The last of the 3, shot with his own rifle. Perfect shot. Straight through the eye. Impossible. The rifles had biometric locks. Ash had cracked them anyway, because everything they brought to this planet became his. They tried to regroup, set up perimeter scans. They got nothing, because the boy was no longer one step ahead. He was inside their heads. He didn't just kill them. He studied them, learned from them. He knew their nerves, knew how to dismantle them. Slow, efficient. One assassin tried to leave. Smart, logical, but the engines never responded, because Ash had buried a Dominion neural fuse inside the corpses of the first 9. It was waiting, attached to the power relays. He triggered it with a blink. The shuttle exploded. They all looked up at the fireball. Ash stood atop a building's edge, silhouetted against the sky, one arm hanging loose, the other raised. He pointed, right at them. Then he vanished again. They lost cohesion after that. Panic, paranoia. Another assassin began screaming in his sleep. Another opened his visor and never closed it again. One started carving runes into his armor. Blood dripped between the plates. Only 4 remained now. 4 against a ghost. They circled tighter, backs to each other, scanners maxed. One of them asked, "What is he?" None answered, but they all thought the same thing. Not human. Ash was crouched in the rafters above. He could hear their breathing, their heartbeats. He didn't move. Not yet. He waited for the weakest one, the one sweating under his armor. He remembered his name from a Dominion badge, Siren 8. Fast, accurate, nervous. Ash dropped, not with a roar, not with a scream. Just wait. Precision. Knuckles into throat, knee into chest. A blade from the boot, into the eye. The other 3 turned too late. They fired. Ash rolled. One bolt clipped his side. He hissed, but didn't fall. He vanished behind wreckage. They chased him into the corridor beneath the ruins. Narrow, winding, perfect. One ran ahead. Ash dropped the smoke charge. Vision gone. Then a cable wrapped around his leg and yanked. Hard. He fell backward, neck cracking against the wall. Dead before he hit the ground. The last two stopped. They didn't call out, didn't scream, but they didn't breathe either. That was all Ash needed. He launched a flash, then came in fast, shoulder to chest, fist to jaw, elbow to throat. He didn't kill. Not right away. He made them bleed. Let them crawl. Let them see his face. You brought this, he whispered, then ended them. Clean. Fast. Ruthless. 10 assassins. All gone. Ash stood over the last corpse, shoulders shaking. Not with grief. Not with exhaustion. But with rage he couldn't contain. He screamed. Loud. Raw. Every name lost. Every betrayal. Every mission. He walked to the center of the colony, tore open the Dominion relay, plugged his blood-drenched cord into the command module. The stars flickered. The Dominion flagship received a signal. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a scream. It was a picture of Ash, staring into the camera, breathing, alive, covered in blood. He raised a hand, held up one finger, then two, then three, then 10, and smiled. The Dominion flagship drifted in high orbit, its shadow eclipsing a quarter of the planet, 32 decks deep, a population of 20,000 crew, 7,000 soldiers, and 6 War Command AI cores. It was the oldest warship in their fleet, called the Ascendant Wrath. No ship had ever breached it. No enemy had ever touched it. Until today, the bridge was silent. Monitors blinked with static. Data feeds looped with one image, again and again. His face. The boy. Ash. Blood-smeared. Bruised. Still breathing. Staring straight into the camera. He had sent his signal 2 hours ago. No words. Just a smile. Then silence. The Roth Command crew hadn't slept. Some hadn't moved. Others paced. Arguments had died down to whispers. One admiral vomited in the corner and never stood back up, because something worse than war was unfolding. They hadn't just failed to kill a child. They had provoked him. And now, they didn't know what was coming next. Until the lights went out, one by one, first in maintenance, then in engineering, then communications. No explosions, no alerts, just systems dying in sequence, like arteries cut in the dark. Then came the announcement. A voice, low, unfiltered. Scott, you should have stayed away. The admiral stood from his chair, screaming for lockdown, for security, for full-deck containment. Too late. The door behind him slid open. Ash walked in. No armor, no weapons, just bone-wrapped fists, blood-crusted boots, and eyes that hadn't blinked since the bone fields. 2 soldiers moved. He moved faster. His knee shattered one throat before the man even saw him. He pivoted, twisted the second's rifle out of his hands, slammed it barrel first into his helmet, and drove it through his skull. The admiral stumbled back. How? He gasped. How did you get on board? Ash raised his hand, dropped something, a Dominion ID chip, from one of the 10 assassins. Gutted, reprogrammed, burned into his skin. The ship had welcomed him home. The admiral reached for his pistol. Ash crossed the distance in 2 steps, grabbed the man's wrist, broke it sideways, then pressed his forehead to the admiral's and whispered, "Your bloodline ends here," and crushed his skull into the console. The bridge erupted in screams. Ash didn't stay. He was already gone, moving through ducts, tunnels, shafts too small for adults, crawling like a shadow in the walls. They activated kill squads, sent AI hunter drones. He led them into blackout sectors and fried their sensors with sonic pulses. He flooded the oxygen systems with powdered fuel, lit it with stolen heat rounds. Flames rolled through hallways like liquid fire. Ash walked out of the blaze untouched. Burned, but alive. He didn't care about pain anymore. Pain had raised him. Pain was home. He reached the AI core, 4 War Command processors, protected by 10 meters of steel and armed guards. He'd planned this for days. He didn't hack it. He bled into it. Literally, his blood was laced with neural threads stolen from a Dominion biotank, built to interface with War AI, burned into his veins when he was 9 years old by Earth's last scientists before they dumped him into Exile Colony 9. He pressed his hand to the interface port, screamed. The cores screamed back. They tried to override him. Failed. He didn't speak code. He was code now. The system shorted. AI processors went dark. Every weapon system on the ship deactivated. The entire Roth shuddered, then began to fall. Not crash. Drift. Ash wasn't crashing it into Earth. He was guiding it. Straight into the Dominion moon base. The hub. Their command center. Their spine. The Roth's engines kicked to full. Officers screamed. Crew tried to eject. Ash locked them in. He walked through the panicked holes, bleeding, coughing, limping, but never stopping. Every camera showed him. The face, the blood, the vengeance. Ash reached the top deck, opened the viewport, looked out at the Dominion moon, growing larger by the second. He wasn't just ending a mission. He was ending a lineage. All those who gave the order to kill his kind lived down there, watching their godship become a meteor. He stared until impact. The Roth hit the moon like judgment. White hot, screaming, tearing. The shockwave shattered half the colony. The other half burned. Ash had already escaped. He'd launched in an escape pod 30 seconds before contact. Didn't even look back, because he didn't need to see it. He could feel it. Dominion command was gone. Erased. The signal he'd sent, send 10, was no longer a challenge. Now, it was a prophecy fulfilled. They had sent 10. Now they had none. The boy landed on a black sand ridge. Smoke behind him. Silence ahead. He limped through the ruins of the Dominion's last safe bastion. Fires crawled up into the sky like claws. Wounded aliens moaned beneath collapsed towers. War banners burned, their crests bleeding ink into the wind. Ash walked past them all. Didn't speak. Didn't shoot. They weren't worth it. They were already dead inside. He stopped at the highest spire, reached into his coat, pulled out the shard of glass. The same one, still red, still sharp. He knelt, carved 3 words into the stone. Earth still lives. And left. No ship, no command, no plan, just a trail of ghosts behind him. The story spread like fire through every system. The child who killed 9 assassins. The boy who walked into the Dominion flagship and broke it from the inside. The human who carved vengeance from bone and silence. They started calling him something else. Not Ash, not Wraith, just the lost child. And every time a Dominion soldier closed his eyes at night, he saw the boy's face, covered in blood, smiling,